So there is this old adage, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. All right, so we know that we have to practice, right? But, you know, it's always interesting because I always have students that ask me, you know, how much and how long should they practice every day? Should they practice an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 10 minutes a day? And the thing is that it's really not how long you practice that matters. It's how you practice that matters. You can get just as much accomplished in 20 minutes of mindful practicing a day as you can do in 2 hours of scattered practicing a day. All right? So it's just a matter that if you practice mindfully and efficiently and you plan it out, then you will achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve much faster, okay? One of the big mistakes people make when they're practicing is that they think they're practicing and they're actually not, in that they sit down at the piano and they just start playing their pieces from beginning to end, okay? So they make mistakes and they just keep going. I know, I told you in sight reading, you keep going past your mistakes. But when you're practicing, you don't go past your mistakes, all right? So they just keep playing their pieces over and over and over again from beginning to end without actually working out the sections that they actually need more help with. All right? And then what happens is that the mistakes don't get fixed. Instead, what's happening is you're actually practicing the mistakes so that the mistakes are becoming part of the habit, not actually the correct way of playing it. All right? So that's not the way that you want to go with practicing. Practicing is not about playing through songs. All right? There are many different aspects to practicing. Number one, practicing is about learning the technique. All right? So that means playing your scales, practicing your fingerings, playing arpeggios, doing chord inversions, and so on and so forth. Developing coordination. All right? That's part of practicing and the technique of practicing. Practicing is sight reading. Okay? Sight reading is a very important thing to practice, all right? Practice is improvisation, all right? If you want to learn how to improvise, then actually practicing improvisation by playing a chord progression and trying to improvise a melody on top of it, that's practice. Music reading is practice. Sitting down and analyzing your score, that's practice. And then, of course, repertoire is practice. But the thing is that with the repertoire, what you want to do is you want to break down your trouble spots. And then you want to work through the transitions of the pieces so that you can make smooth transitions from section to section to section. All right? So to some people, practicing can seem like a real chore, okay? But it doesn't have to be. Practice can be very fun and it can be very rewarding, but there are some tips to make it so. So the first tips that I have is schedule your practice time like it is an appointment and set a duration for it, all right? So the thing is that every night when you're looking at what your schedule for the next day is, figure out a time that you can actually set aside to practice and make a decision for how long you are actually going to practice in that time period. So you look at your schedule and you realize that at 4:30, between 4:30 and 4:50, you have time just before you have to make dinner. Okay? So you write that in your notebook and you commit to it just as if it is an appointment. All right? So that will then give you the motivation to actually go and do it. And the duration then gives you an end time. All right? So that you know, it's just like, you know, when you go on the treadmill and you say, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes, and you punch in 20 minutes, the machine is going to stop you when the 20 minutes is over. All right? So you can set a little timer or do whatever you want to just make sure that you go to that 20-minute or that 40-minute or whatever time slot that you've determined, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and you work through that time, and then you can stop when that's over. Just plan it out, okay? Before you practice, make sure that you set a goal for your practice session, all right? So that if your goal in that practice session is to sight read 6 of the dozen-a-day exercises, then that's a great goal. Do that, all right? Focus on that. Don't get you know, distracted by that pretty piece of music that you love to sing that happens to be sitting on the piano, or those scales that you practiced better the other day but not so great yesterday, and you want to do it. Set a goal and stick to it. Once you've accomplished that goal, if you have time left in your practice session, then do other things. But make sure that you are being goal-oriented in your practice sessions. And then you will find that you will meet your goals much easier and quicker. All right? Then you want to work towards that goal for the duration that you predetermined. Again, adding anything else that you want to it after you have worked on that goal. All right? Then the other thing that I always like to add is always end with something fun. All right? So that, you know, if you know that at the end of your practice session, you are always going to really play that one song that you absolutely love, that you can't live without, okay? And just sing and play that song. Then play that song, okay? You can play it at the end of every practice session if you want to. But end your practice sessions with something fun. Because if you end your practice sessions with something fun, then you will feel more motivated to practice the next day. Okay, or even practice in that one session, because you know, okay, once I get through these scales, I get to play that song, all right? And then that makes it fun. Then the last thing that I want you to do is I want you to take some time at the end of your session to reflect on what you felt good about. All right? What did you accomplish? Did you accomplish your goal? And if you did, that is a big win. All right? So feel good about that, because that is exactly what you need to do. You need to know that those wins are there. All right? So take that time to reflect on what you felt really, really good about. All right? And then you can make notes about what it is that you want to work on in your next practice session that perhaps you didn't get to in this particular practice session, or that you didn't accomplish exactly the way that you wanted to accomplish it. All right? So what I want to talk about now is just sort of the secret to correcting mistakes or developing coordination. What I want you to remember is that there has been a study made that says that if you have a bad habit, in order to break that bad habit, you have to do the thing, whatever the thing you're trying to correct, the right way 100 times before it becomes a new habit. All right? That's a lot of times. All right? So if you are playing a scale and you consistently play with the wrong fingering, you need to stop, you need to correct that fingering, and then play that scale 100 times with the right fingering. And then by the time you get to the 100th time, it will become a habit. Now listen, I know this sounds ridiculous and like, how do I have to? I have so many other things to do other than playing a scale 100 times to correct a habit. I totally get it. I'm just giving you the idea of the study. The fact of the matter is that what is important is the repetition. And it's the repetition of doing it correctly. So that what you want to do is if you play it correctly 6 times, you're planning on doing it 10 times. You play it correctly 6 times, and on the 7th time you make a mistake, you have to start over and play it 10 times in a row the correct way. And that is how you will correct your mistakes. All right? So just make sure that that repetition is part of your regular practice.